On today's top story, we will be talking about Marvin Anderson, a man that spent 20 years in prison for a crime he did not commit, only for new DNA testing to exonerate him and give him back his well-deserved freedom. Let's take a look. Marvin Anderson was born and raised in Hanover, Virginia. Since the age of 10 years old, he had a dream to finish high school and go through the fire academy to become a firefighter. In 1982, Anderson had just graduated high school and had enrolled in the fire academy to fulfill his lifelong dream. However, he was 18 years old when he was convicted of robbery, sodomy, abduction, and rape of a young white woman. On July 17, 1982, a young woman was brutally raped by a black man who approached her on a bicycle. The assailant beat her, threatened her with a gun, raped her, and sodomized her. The man was a complete stranger to her. The only information that she was able to provide to the Virginia police was that she was raped by a black man and that this black man had a white girl. After she reported the crime, a police officer singled out Marvin Anderson as a suspect because he was the only known black man to live with a white woman in town. The police asked him if he knew anything about the rape that took place over the weekend, in which he responded that he knew nothing other than what was heard from others within his community. Because Anderson had no prior criminal record, the officers went to Anderson's employer and obtained a colored employment photo identification card for the photo lineup. The victim was shown the color identification card along with half a dozen black and white mugshots of other men, which then she was asked to point out the perpetrator from the photos. The victim identified Anderson as her assailant. Within an hour of the photo spread, she was then asked to identify the assailant from a police lineup. Marvin Anderson was the only person in the lineup whose picture was in the original photo array shown to the victim. She identified him in the lineup as well. At the trial, the victim testified in detail regarding the assault and stated that Anderson was the perpetrator. She said that in addition to the rape, that Anderson pried her mouth open and inserted his penis. As well, she said that he forced her to consume fecal matter and urinated on her. The serology work that was completed by the Virginia Bureau of Forensic Science was informative. Anderson's trial counsel offered an alibi defense which included Marvin Anderson's white girlfriend. His mother also knew about his whereabouts at the time of the crime. Both alibis stated that Anderson was at home washing his girlfriend's car when the crime took place. At the beginning of the case, people in the community became aware that the most likely suspect was a different black man named John Otis Lincoln. The bicycle that has been identified as being used by the perpetrator was identified by the original owner, who said that Lincoln had stolen it from him approximately a half hour before the crime was committed. Anderson requested that his attorney call both the owner of the bicycle and Lincoln as a witness. However, his counsel denied the request. On December 14, 1982, Anderson was convicted by an all-white jury of robbery, forcible sodomy, abduction, and 2 counts of rape. Even though this was his first conflict with the law, the court sentenced Anderson to multiple consecutive sentences with a total of 210 years of imprisonment in the Virginia State Penitentiary. 6 years later, in 1988, John Otis Lincoln came forward and admitted his involvement in the crime in an effort to clear Anderson. At a state hearing in August 1988, Lincoln confessed and offered details of the crime under oath and in an open courtroom. The same judge who presided over the original trial refused to vacate the conviction, declaring that Lincoln was a liar. A variety of civil rights groups, church leaders of the community, and members of the state legislature petitioned to Governor Wilder for clemency in 1993, however, it was denied. Many years after Anderson's conviction, he sought to prove his innocence of the crime when DNA testing became more widely available. Once he began taking the first steps to dig into the evidence, his lawyers were told by police, the prosecutor, and the courts that the rape kit and other additional contents of evidence have been destroyed. Anderson then took greater action and contacted the Innocence Project, in which his case was accepted in 1994. In 2001, Dr. Paul Ferreira, the director of the Virginia Division of Forensic Science, advised the Innocence Project that certain physical evidence, including sperm and semen samples recovered from the victim's body, has been located in the notebook of Mary Jane Burton, the criminalist who performed the conventional serology in 1982 at the initial trial. If Mary Jane Burton followed policy and returned the partially used swabs back to the original rape kit in 1982, all evidence of this case would have been lost and Anderson would not have been able to prove his innocence. The Innocence Project then proceeded to contact the Commonwealth Attorney of Hanover County, who agreed that the Division of Forensic Science should conduct new DNA tests on the evidence. However, in April 2001, the director of the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services denied the request for retesting the evidence. The director announced that they will only retest the evidence upon a defendant's attorney showing ample cause for the court or the governor's office to order such testing. In May of 2001, Virginia adopted a new statute that permitted individuals convicted of a felony to ask the circuit court of the original conviction to order new scientific analysis of previously untested science evidence. The Innocent Project filed a request under this new statute, which was approved in the fall of 2001. This began the process of testing the evidence in Anderson's case. On December 6, 2001, the results excluded Anderson as the perpetrator. Because the evidence was seriously degraded, the profile that was obtained was limited to 4 STR markers. When the profile was run against Virginia's offender DNA base, it matched 2 inmates. Although the identity of these 2 men have not been officially revealed publicly, it appeared that one of these 2 inmates was John Otis Lincoln. Now you may wonder, how can someone be wrongfully convicted? The Innocence Project now estimates that 1% of the U.S. prison population, approximately 20% of people, are falsely convicted. They state that eyewitness misidentification, false confessions, and the government misconduct are the leading causes of wrongful convictions. Let's take a look at the factors that contributed to the wrongful conviction of Marvin Anderson's case. The first error that led to the wrongful conviction of Marvin Anderson was tunnel vision by the police. The police narrowed in on Anderson before any other suspects were looked at, based on the fact that he was a black man who was known to have a white girlfriend. This led to the unconscious filtering of evidence that built the case against Anderson, while ignoring and suppressing evidence that pointed him away from guilt, including his alibi statements. They took a general statement from the victim and pointed it towards the only person that they personally knew who fit the description, which was Marvin Anderson. The next issue that led to Marvin Anderson's wrongful conviction was the suggestive identification procedures carried out by the police that led to eyewitness misidentification. Senior attorney Vanessa Potkin, member of the Innocence Project, said that Anderson's case had been mishandled from the very beginning, including the lineup and the suggestive identification procedures which led the victim to pick out Anderson. Marvin Anderson was the only person in the photo lineup who had a picture in color rather than black and white. This led the victim to point out the only photo that looked significantly different than the others. As well, right after the photo identification was completed, she immediately looked at a suspect lineup in person. Marvin Anderson was the only person in the line who was also in the photo lineup, which is problematic because she would likely choose him based on recognizing him and being familiar with him based on his appearance from looking at the photo lineup. Ultimately, this case suffered from serious racial injustice. Racial discrimination has been ingrained in the criminal legal system from its earliest days, which still persists today. Marvin's story demonstrates how racism and bias can misinform criminal investigations. Despite having no prior criminal record, they looked at Anderson based on his appearance. Racial injustice is a serious issue in the United States. Half of the 2,725 people exonerated since 1989 are black. While these people have regained their freedom, collectively, they have lost more than 10,000 years. According to the National Registry of Exonerations, cases of black people exonerated from wrongful convictions were 22% more likely to involve police misconduct. Additionally, there was serious malpractice within the system. It was later revealed that Anderson's original attorney did not present evidence pointing to Lincoln as the perpetrator because he was also representing Lincoln in a separate case. This led to the suppression and dismissal of important evidence that could have led to the freedom of the defendant. As well, the judge completely dismissed Lincoln's confession, stating that he was a liar, to assure the public that the legal system was right and did its job well in the first trial. A different judge should have been appointed by the legal system to ensure fair treatment and to overlook the errors in the original trial. There are police, judges, and prosecutors who intentionally do suggestive identifications and hide evidence that could be helpful to the defense. We see similar trends in lawyers who offer inadequate assistance and purposefully avoid presenting evidence that would damage the strength of their case. Much of the time, lawyers are wanting to secure wins on cases to increase their desirability and social standing. A part of this issue is that these professionals are almost completely immune from everything that they do in the courtroom. Rarely are they held accountable for their misconduct. Sadly, the consequences of these professional misconducts are immeasurable. Today, Marvin Anderson serves as chief as the Hangover, Virginia Fire Department, where he overlooks a team of 30 people. Him and his mother also serve on the board of directors for the Innocence Project. He now has 3 children. Let's take a look at the inside perspective of Marvin Anderson himself after Innocence.
The day that I was found guilty, of course, I turned around to look at my family who was in court with me, and I couldn't see them. Everything was black. Although they was less than 10 feet away from me, I couldn't see them. It's like you fall into a black hole and you can't pull your way out. I was angry. Of course, we're all gonna be angry because we don't really understand what has just happened to us. You know you didn't commit a crime, but yet your life is in the hands of 12 people and a judge who just said you did this crime. You don't know having where to go. I was mad, more or less, at our system, people that I trusted, not knowing anything about the law, but knowing that as a child you are told to trust these people. And that's the way I was raised, to believe and trust in our police officers, fire officers, or people of the law. You believe and trust them. They are there to help you. Well, what I was taught has just failed me. Over the years, you learn how to turn on your emotions and turn them off. You learn how to control your emotions. And in order to better myself and to stay focused, I chose not to be angry. Anger only does one thing to you, and that's eat at you and eat away from you. It takes everything from you. If you spend that much energy in being angry at something or someone, you have no energy to fight. In 2000, I received a phone call from Mr. Peter Neufeld, who is from the New York Innocent Project Network, one of the co-founders, and he informed me that he had some good news and some bad news. We have a type of relationship where I said, Peter, okay, give me the bad news first. And he said, well, I'm gonna give you the good news first. He said, we ran tests on DNA and you have been excluded from everything. So I'm like, okay, so what's the bad news? He said, well, the bad news is that the Attorney General has put a halt on your testing. And when he called me and we talked over the phone, I was on Interstate 95, driving a tractor trailer. And when he told me that I had been excluded from all evidence of being the attacker, I said, Mr. Neufeld, I said, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm driving a tractor trailer, 18-wheeler on northbound 95 during rush hour traffic. Is there any way I could call you back? He said, sure, give me time to get home. And the whole time I'm driving this truck, I'm looking down at the vehicles that's passing me, and I'm going to myself, wow. All of these years of fighting, we finally have the evidence to prove my innocence, when there was a time that no one wanted to listen to me, no one believed me, and now I can prove my innocence. So I pulled over side the road, got out of the truck, and actually walked maybe 25 yards ahead of the truck and turned around and looked at the traffic, looked at the truck, and said, I am a free man. Society believes that once a person goes to court, he is found guilty, that he actually committed a crime. That is not the case. Not everyone that is incarcerated committed a crime. And until society believes and accept the fact that we only human, we make mistakes, there are innocent people that's in prison.
Well, there you have it. This was the inside story on the wrongful conviction of Marvin Anderson. Luckily, with the improvements of forensic science, DNA evidence was what made the difference in Anderson's case. These improvements were able to find the actual perpetrator and free Marvin Anderson. For more information on wrongful convictions and how to get involved within your community, please visit the Innocence Project website, where you can join the movement of over 1 million supporters on the mission towards criminal justice reform. Thanks for watching your local news, and on behalf of Channel 7, we'll see you next time. Good night.